Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
It's hard to get stuff done when there's no one to do it for you.
Biggest value, the biggest marketing opportunity I think any photographer has is their existing client base.
Photos help us remember to remember.
All right, so Rachel LaCour Niesen, right?
You got it. That's correct.
Now, I say that because we've been just chatting a little bit for a couple minutes, but I wanted to start by saying this. This is a strange conversation for me on one hand, because I have known who you are, or I have known of you, I would guess for 15 years, but we have never spoken before.
Nope.
We've never met, have we?
We have met, but I think it was actually in the setting, probably a WPPI party.
Okay.
Could have been Studio 54. I don't know.
Right,
it was some
but there's
big party, yeah.
But we've never had like a dialogue like this before. I'm sure
like
we've
this.
met in passing, sure, but
Yeah,
never like this before. This is
not for real in real virtual life. Yes.
Right. So this is kind of exciting for me because I've known of you for such a long time, even though we apparently met in passing at one point, which is the case with most people, I guess. But tell me a little bit about who you are personally. Then we can get into ShootProof and everything else, but kind of go into the mix on who you are.
So I am a photojournalist turned wedding photographer turned software entrepreneur and now software executive. So it's been quite a 2-decade long run of really starting with just a love of photography and telling stories to kind of unlocking the bit that relates to business, which is helping photographers find success in their own stories. So it's been a fun 2-decade.
What has it been like to transition between those roles?
You know, it's I guess hindsight's always telling. I think the transition between wedding photography and software was probably the hardest because at the time I didn't really understand what like a SaaS product was or what software photographers what it could look like. And so I was still trying to straddle the world of, hey, I'm a wedding photographer. I'm going to keep doing, hundreds of weddings and run a software company and try to grow and scale the software company. And that was a recipe for burnout. So that was, that was the sort of 2000s, the mid 2000s was constantly balancing being a creative and also channeling creative energy into a software product. And looking back now on that, I think, I'm not sure I realized how hard that was or what a toll it was taking mentally until it was sort of in the past.
Did you have a wake-up call? Because some of the stuff that you're saying resonates with me in that, and I've had other conversations even recently about this, in that, yes, I call it back in the day, I worked 2 jobs and I was putting in 70, 80, 90 hours, literally 90 hours a week. Sometimes I say that
that's
now.
About right.
Like, and I could do it then because I was younger, right? I was in better shape, like all the stuff, right? And I was also like super excited and motivated by all this new stuff that was happening. So that kind of pushed me maybe adrenaline wise. But at some point it was like hitting a brick wall. I was like, I can't keep doing this. This is not sustainable. Did you hit a wall at some point?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, that wall probably, I'm not sure I hit the wall as much as the wall hit me because I was not even aware there was a wall. I was like, I'll just keep going and hustling and building and it just, it caught up with me for sure. And I think actually, so my husband and I just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, but our 10th wedding anniversary we spent in Paris. And I actually remember sitting at a cafe in Paris and looking at each other, and we were like, we don't even know each other because we're so busy building these other things that actually felt like children. The businesses felt like children. And so we were investing so much in those businesses that we just kind of forgot that there was a person sitting across from us who was not just a business partner, but was a life partner. And so that was really hard. I think it was not a great trip, actually. We were joking. And I can say that now, another 10 years have passed. And we
can laugh about it now.
We sat at a cafe in North Carolina just a couple days ago saying, wow, how different this is than the 10-year anniversary where we felt more like business partners and less like like married partners. So this was that was the wall. It caught up with us, and it hit both of us pretty hard.
What motivated you in the first decade of your marriage as opposed to the second decade of your marriage? How did the motivation? How did what it was that motivated you change?
So I think I know for me personally, my motivation was sort of a competition with myself. Is how far can I push myself? How hard? What can I achieve?
Yep.
And I think both Andrew and I are wired that way anyway, because we both came from a place of being very competitive photojournalists, and that the world of journalism has in some ways changed a lot in 20 years, but in other ways it's exactly the same, which is the pay's not great, the hours are really strenuous, there's no time for personal life, and it's competitive. And so we both came from that, like, what's the next assignment? How can we cobble together portfolios that are so strong that we can win awards, and all of this kind of stuff that seemed to matter at the time. And I think looking back now, realizing that our competition was really ourselves. And for me in particular, I think that perfectionism was really unhealthy, and I just transferred it from making pictures to making businesses. And somehow I thought that would be better, that, oh, well, now that my right brain's not so caught up in this, and it's not really my creative endeavor, like it will be somehow different. But it wasn't. It was just as competitive, and how hard can I push to succeed? And I think that was frankly just life lessons that you don't know until you experience them, and then you realize what really matters. And that's why I think even looking at so much of what ShootProof is now today, which 10 years ago I wouldn't even have known what ShootProof was. I was so consumed with the world as I knew it, that I didn't understand that the concept of focus on what matters most, it just wasn't something I even considered. And I'm really glad that today I work at a place where that's a core value at ShootProof, is focus on what matters most. And for a long time, I think I thought that was my photography or business. And now I know that it's actually living in service to others, and serving photographers and those around me, whether it's my husband or my son, my family, is much more rewarding. So in fact, my photography is usually better when I actually do those things. So
isn't that funny?
It informs the way I see. Yeah. So it's,
There's a symbiotic relationship there. Tell me a little bit about ShootProof now. Let's transition into that. Who is, not what is ShootProof? I'm interested in who is ShootProof from your perspective.
So from my perspective, ShootProof is, one, I think, a team of irreverent innovators, I think is probably how I would put it, that there's a certain level of irreverence and creativity that goes into innovation. And I know that our team at its core has that DNA, where we look for ways to build something different and to channel the balance of right and left brain into all of the software that we build. So it's
irreverence from the standpoint that you aren't just going to stick to the status quo to build something.
Yeah.
Right? Go into that a little bit more. I'm really interested in that word.
I think from the way we communicate, I think it's part of the brand voice as well. It's true in the product, and it's also true in the brand voice, and that anything you see from ShootProof in terms of content or even within the product, that we try to be a little cheeky, a little willing to poke fun at ourselves, and willing to say, well, just because everyone else is taking themselves seriously, why do we have to? And I mean, we take the business of building a good product seriously, but I don't think we take ourselves too seriously. And that's where I think the irreverence is allowed. It's actually welcomed. I like that. Yeah. And it keeps the team more vibrant. And I think it also helps us focus on what matters most, and not get so caught up in, hey, are we meeting every deadline, or are we, our numbers looking great this month? It's more about, hey, what's the long game? Like, are we focused on what's really going to make a difference?
Is that a part of the piece? I feel like humility is lost a lot these days, right?
Yeah, these days especially. I think humility is almost looked at as like weakness, or if you're humble, you must be weak or not really have authority. And I think,
but it's not timid. Right?
No, it's not. I think it's
humble.
Yeah, it's humble, and I think it's like servant leadership a little bit. And what does that look like? And I will say that at ShootProof, we were really lucky to have sort of servant leaders be at the heart of the company. That, from our founders to our new CEO, who is a recent addition to our company, we have leaders who are willing to, put the success of their team and ultimately of the customers at the forefront of what success looks like.
Right.
And that's really encouraging. I think that not losing sight of the voice of the customer, and also, what it means to look at your own team and have them hold you accountable, sometimes in that irreverent way, to say, you guys are all focused on the wrong stuff. Like, how have we lost sight of what really matters? Like, it's really healthy not to have, a forced hierarchy that keeps people from questioning and being a little irreverent when it actually means the customer benefits. So,
well, and that I like the fact that that's coming from leadership too, because that affects the whole culture of a company, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Yeah. And I think, in my experience, I think the, innovation usually happens when it's not scheduled, it's not dictated, it's not mandated. It's usually happening in those, in between moments where people are left to their own devices to kind of explore and, build what they think needs to be built. And that can only happen in a culture that allows for that level of experimentation and irreverence.
Well, and that works better for creatives, doesn't it? I mean, every one of your clients probably understands what you're saying when they hear that, because it works better for creatives to have that space. Yeah. Like you can't, creativity doesn't do well in a forced environment, does it?
You can't schedule it. No, you can't schedule breakthroughs, creative breakthroughs, or
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Now that leads me to, so I wanted to talk about the importance of something that I think is really at one of the hearts. Well, at least it is for me, because I've had a photography studio for, over 20 years. I've worked for a lab for over 10 years. I started with White House in 2009. And so it's not a big surprise to hear me, for anybody to hear me talk about printing, right? In particular, to have, products that are physical, to have a print that you can see on the wall or in an album or whatever. I want to hear you talk about the importance of printing.
Yeah, I think this is a subject that's really important to me, not only because of my relationship with ShootProof and the photographers we serve, but also because I actually spend a lot of time in my down moments digitizing my old family photos, and have also helped friends and family digitize theirs. And I think that there's one phrase that always comes back to me whenever I talk to anyone really about the value of print. And that is that photos help us remember to remember. And, having that reminder, the physical reminder of a memory, is not like a one-time transactional experience. It's an ongoing experience. And there've actually been a few studies, one by a psychologist at Emory University here in Atlanta, who talked about, what is it that makes children confident and happy? And one of the sort of key factors in a child's happiness and confidence growing into adulthood was understanding their family story and having photos that help them as almost like signposts along the way to look to. And I think that, that's never been something that I really considered when I was a working active wedding photographer. I remember saying to clients, you all are my clients, but really it's generations from now. That's my client too. We don't even know who's going to be looking at these photos in 10 or 20 years. And so I always felt, I guess, inherently that the work that I was doing would have an impact decades later and actually would become more valuable decades later. And understanding that value of a photo, that it's valuable. I can say this from even, my own wedding photos. Andrew and I, probably assign more value to them now than even,
interesting, right?
They were all filmed, so it took a couple of weeks when we got them back, years ago, 20 years ago. And now we look at them and the value is even higher. To intrinsic value has risen, has grown over time. And I really believe that. I fundamentally believe that having those printed reminders that help us remember to remember is a very powerful force of connection for people. I think it's a source of hope for people. I think it reminds us that our stories started before us, that, ultimately my story is connected to my parents and my grandparents, and having those visual reminders, I really need them. Otherwise I would have no prompt to ask questions about who were these people? What did they what did they love? What were their interests? How did my grandparents meet? All of these things matter more to me now as I get older, but also my son, he hears those stories and he asks questions like, tell me more about Big Al. That was my grandfather. He's like, hey, tell me about him. He sees the picture on the wall and wants to know, why is he wearing a white outfit? Oh, that's his Navy uniform. What does that mean? I mean, these are little moments that become the big moments when we look back.
That same stuff is happening to us right now too. Like almost that exact same story. My son heard about his grandpa in the Navy, and there was a picture at my grandma's house before she passed away, and that it's. You say so many different profound things, like they remind us to remember, right? That's a huge piece to me. And it's not something that because you have to remember, it's not something that's at the forefront of your mind all the time. But then when it's there, all of that kind of happens, right? In real time. I'm curious what your thoughts are regarding this in particular, in that I see it, technology is amazing. And digital technology in particular, given what we're talking about, is amazing. And yet it has led to billions and billions, maybe trillions more photographs, right, being taken, but in a relative sense, a much smaller percentage of those photographs being printed. What sort of mission is there, or what sort of steps do you take even personally to kind of counteract that, to promote more printing of photos?
That's a great question. And I think it's interesting. I was actually looking at, I don't know if you're familiar with Rise Above Research. They're a photo research and analytics company. They're really interesting. And I think they have some connections actually with some other pro photography groups. But I actually looked at their recent report saying that between 2010 and 2019, over 8.6 trillion photos were captured globally. And the percentage of those that has been printed is minuscule. Like, you're just looking at this huge, like this amassed collection of photos that has never been printed. And so there's I see a huge opportunity. I mean, there's a reason why you look at Shutterfly's reports from the last 6 months, and they're experiencing a surge in printing.
Yep, of course.
And I think that as we've kind of entered this perfect storm of pandemic and like societal unrest and all of these questions about who we are, what are our values, how do we feel safe, how do we identify with each other and our communities, suddenly photos have actually become even more important, because they kind of root us in our humanity, like our shared humanity, that we're actually more alike than we are different. And so when I saw the report from Rise Above, I started thinking about, what would be the opportunity in that, is actually taking all these photos, these memories we've made, whether it's portraits that so many photographers I've seen are doing, or, images of our kids with masks going to school, if they're going back to school. I mean, these are all really important milestones that if we don't print them, there's a good chance that they'll never be revisited or discussed later. Right. Or
seen at all. They may not be seen at all.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. It's that digital dark age concept that I think is very real. And it's, I think it was Vint Cerf, the sort of, godfather of Google, I think is what they call him. He said that we could be facing a digital dark age for the generation that is, born into social media, that suddenly, their entire experience of images would be, digital, not print. And the danger of that, ultimately digital is the ultimate backup. That if you don't have a physical print of a memory, you may not be guaranteed to actually have it 20 years from now. Right. Or even be able to look at it. Right. So,
or if it's among 8.9 trillion photos, be able to find it.
Yeah. Needle in a haystack. Yeah, exactly. And it's, it's funny. This is totally my, sometimes I feel like I get on a soapbox about this, but I just think people don't realize a sense of urgency around printing their photos and getting into a habit of printing. Yeah. Whether you're, even more so for photographers, it's like that adage of the cobbler's children have no shoes.
Yes, no shoes, right.
A lot of photographers are the ones who have the least printed photos, because they're always so busy focusing on their clients that they don't print their own. And I think just, getting into a habit of monthly, making prints, printing a soft cover book, press printed book even, is a good habit.
Now, so obviously I know that's how you feel. I know that ShootProof is a company that it's a big supporter of that. White House obviously is. Talk to me about the relationship between ShootProof and White House and the importance of that from your perspective too.
Yeah, I think when I look at sort of the history of ShootProof as creating that hub of photographers' working life, connecting photographers to a lab that values print as much as we do as a team, and also as those of us who are photographers at ShootProof, which is quite a few of us.
Right.
We really value the lab connections, and I think White House has always been, in my experience before ShootProof and now at ShootProof, has been a team that has shared very clearly the values of quality, not only quality prints, but a quality experience, so that photographers know that they can trust a partner with something as important as their own memories or their clients' memories. I think that trust is really hard to quantify. And just to know that what you're getting, whether you're the photographer receiving the images or your photographer actually delivering images to your client, ultimately you have to have that trust that those on the other end of the sort of production queue are understanding the value, the intrinsic value of that product, because it's more than a product. It's a memory. It's in many cases it's a significant investment for a family.
Well said. Very well said.
So yeah, that's it matters most to us. I think not only that our lab partners share those values, but also that we can just also share that trust with our clients. We pass it on to our photographers. That it's almost like a stamp of approval. Like, ShootProof trust these guys. You should too.
Right.
So, yeah, we feel that way. We really do.
Tell me this, that we're all going into the busy season right now. I mean, historically, this is where everything starts to ramp up. And even though we've had a crazy year, I don't expect it to be any different in that I expect everything to ramp up. What does that look like? Let me ask it this way. What does that look like at ShootProof now in the next couple months for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are, kind of, I would say, proactively preparing for what we anticipate to be our busiest months in terms of call volume. So we get a lot of calls from photographers during the high season of delivering products and images to consumers. It's one thing that honestly I love. Of course, I'm biased because I work at ShootProof, but our support team is probably one of my favorite teams at ShootProof, maybe my favorite team. Actually, I used to love sitting, when I did still work at the office, of course, I would sit and listen to their calls, and just the way they could infuse like humor and help that's really hard to do. And
it's hard to do it well.
It is, yeah, especially when there's someone calling and they're kind of freaked out because they don't know where their order is or what's happening with the software. So we're preparing proactively to get our support team ready to handle the calls, to know that it's going to be busy season for them, but also as we start to think about the place that ShootProof is in now, which is unique in that we have a brand family. Historically, we've always been, ShootProof, and now that we've made some acquisitions, we're a brand family, and so weaving in messaging and opportunities to actually, present more value to photographers through our brand family, through seasonal deals, through opportunities to actually leverage, workflow solutions and studio management. These are all a big part of our conversation right now. Is how can we deliver more value by leveraging the brand family that we do have now. So
is that a big piece? This will lead right into my last question. Is that a big piece of what's coming? I mean, I know everyone's talking about, let's just get to 2021. It's not like, a virus or anything like that's going to be like, well, it's 2021, I'm going to go away. But what does the future look like for you guys after we get on the other side of the holidays? Is there anything that you can talk about that you're looking forward to specifically next year?
Yeah, definitely. So 2021 is poised to be a big year for ShootProof. We've spent 2020, I think, like a lot of folks, investing in infrastructure, investing in our team, stabilizing our team and ultimately our customers, trying to provide them as much support and value through a really unusual and frankly bonkers year. Let's be honest. Like, it's just 2020 will go down in the books as being
no getting around it.
Off the rails. But here we are. Like, we have to keep photographers on the rails. So as we look at 2021, the investments are in technology. So understanding that we are entering a new year, frankly, with a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of challenges that, we do have incredible competitors who we respect and who have done some innovating in areas that we also need to step up in. So we've had a lot of conversations, and there are also, a lot of, I would say the sort of the next steps for us are execution in getting, getting some things to market that will be a significant value for photographers and for their clients, which is, to me, it's not enough to deliver value to the photographer. You have to deliver value to the consumer, because the consumers are driving it.
That's right.
I love photographers. They're my people, but ultimately, if the mother of the bride or the parent who's investing in a photo shoot isn't seeing what they want and what they expect, then we're all losing. So we're going to be focusing a lot too on the end client experience, not just the photographer.
I think that's the right way to look at it. And I'm happy to hear you say that. I mean, I think sometimes that it's easy to lose sight of that sometimes when you get too close to it. Right. But I think that's a really good way to see it, because you're absolutely right. They're the ones that are driving the bus, so to speak.
Well, and consumers, we see the appetite for, they go to Shutterfly. There are plenty of places they could go.
Yep.
Mixed Tiles, Passbook, I could name dozens where they could go and find pretty high quality photo products outside of their professional photographer relationship. And we want to try to keep the professional photographers at the center of the memory keeping, and know that ultimately they are the gatekeepers along with their client. So So look for lots in those areas around client experience for the
I'm excited.
photographers.
2021, it's coming. I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was nice to have a conversation like this with you. Maybe someday we'll see each other in person again, and at hopefully like a dinner at a convention or something. Remember those?
Exactly.
Remember we used to have those?
Remember those things called places that we used to go to on things called airplanes? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I look forward to that.
Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it, Rachel, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Awesome. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Jed.
You too.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right there. It's there somewhere.